Lessons Not Yet Learnt is a podcast that uncovers the costly mistakes that businesses keep making and how to finally move past them. Through storytelling, candid conversations, and expert perspectives, I'm on a mission to challenge outdated thinking, bring those overlooked lessons to the surface, and drive meaningful change, one story at a time. Hi, welcome to this bonus episode of Lessons Not Yet Learnt. I'm your host, Kiran Kachela. Now, in our last episode, we had Abby join us and we talked about the concept of threaded leadership, this critical thread that weaves through all of the core departments that are needed to help drive transformation, acting as this central link. Now, did you know that Amazon, the global e-commerce and cloud computing giant, renowned for its relentless innovation, actually built its scale and agility on the foundation of the concept of single-threaded leadership, where you have this one person weaving throughout all of the departments to drive the innovation and acting as that key accountable person. But this wasn't their only magic ingredient. There was one more. And it's called two pizza teams. This simple rule was coined by Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and he said that no team should be so large that it cannot be adequately fed by two standard-sized pizzas. Now, as you can imagine, this isn't really about eating pizzas, although I have to admit it does make me hungry talking about pizza. But this is actually about organizational design, team effectiveness, and team efficiency. In the early days of Amazon, Bezos actually observed some of the challenges that they were feeling as they were growing. So he observed that there were too many meetings and too many people in meetings. There was too much communication overhead. It was communication overload. And as a result, decisions were being made really slowly, and this was hindering innovation. Now, these are all things that I'm sure you are familiar with. I'm sure you've experienced. This excess communication is a sign of dysfunction, not collaboration. There is such a thing as too much communication. So his solution was to break down these teams into smaller, autonomous teams, the two pizza teams, those that could consume two standard-sized pizzas adequately. So what is the power of this two pizza team solution? Let me tell you. Firstly, it helps reduce complex communication overhead. Now, we've all been in those environments where when there's too many people, that communication isn't seamless, it isn't smooth, it's multi-layered, it's complex, and you get misunderstandings, misalignment. It just takes so much more time and effort. So by having smaller teams, you can manage that communication much better and make sure everybody understands. Number two, faster decision making. Now, again, I'm sure you've all experienced meetings where there's too many people and no decisions that get made. It's the most frustrating thing for me, I have to say. I get really frustrated in those situations. So the whole concept is if you have less people, it's much quicker to make decisions. Now, I've seen processes throughout the organizations I've worked with where some of the approval processes are ridiculous. Why? Because they have too many people involved. I've actually seen a process where there's 30 people involved in approving a purchase order. And I can tell you now, it was the most inefficient process I've ever come across. It had people that were having to approve things twice. It had people in the approval chain that really didn't have a vested interest in the topic and didn't really care. And so they were just ticking it as a tick box exercise. So sometimes it's about less is more. Number three, clearer accountability and ownership. Now, when there is a smaller team, roles and responsibilities are much clearer. You can clearly understand what your contribution is to the objective and the role that each person plays. And it's much more difficult to hide. I always find that in large organizations, people start to take shared responsibility and people can hide. Whereas I think in smaller teams, you really can't. You've got to deliver and everyone can see. It's much more visible. Your contribution is more visible. Number 4, increased innovation and agility. Now, that is ultimately the game. That is why Jeff Bezos and even Apple founder Steve Jobs found that the smaller teams and working as almost mini startups is the way forward to drive agility and innovation. Now, that's something I can say at my company, CRO Projects. It's one of the things I love about the way in which we work, where the teams are like 2 pizza teams. And actually, you get this sense of startup buzz. You know, even though we've been operating since 2012, everybody is excited to be able to deliver change and they all play a critical role in contributing to it. And they all see and feel the impact of their contribution. And I think there's a real art to that. And I know Apple's founder, Steve Jobs, talked about this a lot in interviews and said that even though they grew and scaled at pace, they maintained this level of operating like startups. So the CI fix today to consider is, are your teams small enough to be fed by 2 pizzas? Now, this is a good reminder that sometimes to achieve big, you need to think small. And that feeds in nicely to our next episode, which is about the detail is what they fail on. We'll be talking about some of the strong foundations, some of the basics, the detail that is often overlooked. So make sure you tune in. Look forward to seeing you next time.